At a young age, when Meera saw this baby Krishna statue, it was like deja vu for her, and she fell in love all over again. So Vraj is the land of bhakti. It is all about the path of devotion to Krishna. Part of me wondered what would make a land considered sacred. So last month, when I got to visit India after 4 years, I knew that extra little interest in the country and culture comes largely from my upbringing. Every night my dad used to read stories from the Indian mythology to me. Also, when I started doing yoga in like 2005, I would feel more silent, more peaceful when I entered some of these places. Many of these places are considered sacred lands. So part of me wondered what would make a land considered sacred. So I'm in New Delhi, in India. I think the best way to travel is to expect the unexpected. There's all this study about Dr. Emoto and what he said about water actually being able to carry the imprint of an emotion. Or there was another study where they did elaborate testing in different movie scenes that would create different emotions in different theaters. So they set up this equipment and, like, for example, in the movie Hunger Games, when Jennifer Lawrence was in danger, their equipment detected the chemicals that are related to stress hormones that the audience was feeling. And this was replicated in multiple theaters. And the same thing for like a really funny scene, the chemistry in the air was related to that. And we say things like, oh, there was so much tension in the air, right? Like if you walk into a room and there are two people that have been arguing for a while and you didn't know it, but when you go in, you kind of feel like something is really intense in the air, right? If we take this to the next level in yoga, they say that yogis who live in a very intense way leave their imprint upon the soil and the air, and that land becomes considered sacred. I actually got to visit a sacred land called Vrindavan, which is part of the Vraj Mandala. This is where Krishna was born and lived a very intense life. There is a formal pilgrimage called the 84 Kosh Yatra, which I didn't do, but this number 84 keeps popping up for me because there's 84 yoga asanas. And it also says that in order to be born as a human, one has to be reborn 84,000 times. So there must be some significance to this number. So Vraj is the land of bhakti. It is all about the path of devotion to Krishna. I think it can be quite difficult for people in this day and age to relate with this devotion. I'm telling you, as a female solo traveler roaming around India for all these weeks, I have a new level of respect for this. Because just a couple hundred years ago, women did not have this kind of freedom. There was a phase in India's history where women couldn't do a lot of things. For example, Meerabai. At the age of 4, she fell in love with the statue of Krishna. And I've been reading some texts that say in another incarnation or in another life, Meera was actually Lalita, who's a gopi or a childhood friend of Krishna. And so at a young age, when Meera saw this baby Krishna statue, it was like deja vu for her, and she fell in love all over again. That's what they say. And that love snowballed into this wild devotion where she couldn't really live as a wife because in her heart, she was married to Krishna. Meera was a princess. Her family didn't support her at all. It really wasn't a good look for a royal family. So she ended up having to leave the kingdom. She traveled from village to village to different Krishna temples, dancing in love for Krishna. And although many people would have bowed down to her and taken care of her, she definitely didn't have a lot of support. Because when she came to Vrindavan, by then her life is Krishna, She was like blissfully dancing away and she wanted to enter a Krishna temple. But the priest stopped her and said that women weren't allowed in the temple. So that's how difficult things were for women back then. But she said, in front of Krishna, everyone is a woman. And there's even a temple for Meera here with an interesting story. It seems the king was so embarrassed of her that he sent poison to her to kill her. I'm telling you, it was not a good time for women. But then they say there was this miracle, and she opened the box and poison had turned into a black shaligram, which is a sacred kind of stone. And that shaligram now lives in this Meera temple and is worshipped. But for me personally, it was these smaller temples on the outskirts of Vrindavan which really drew me in. These deities are Radha Krishna, very ancient, that were often created to take care of the village and the day-to-day life of the villagers. Just when you enter some of these, you immediately feel enveloped with a sweet sense of love and playfulness. Because this was the nature of Krishna when he lived in Vrindavan. And so this is the quality that is celebrated here. The city itself needs to be worked on a lot. In spite of that, I noticed just every Vrajbashi who lives there had this simplicity and love and inclusion about them. I guess devotion can be to any entity that you hold as larger than yourself. I think that's what makes life more beautiful, because you're not fussing about yourself all the time. That's what I took away from Vrindavan. After leaving Vrindavan, I came back to Delhi. Felt like visiting a space that I hadn't been in over 15 years. A place that had sort of marked a life shift for me over 15 years ago. Please stay tuned for my next video. I really want to share with you what I learned here.